Hello, in this video I wanted to talk to you about an add-on called Pawn. This is an add-on that will help you compare pieces of gear to determine which one is the best upgrade for you. It doesn't focus on using just item level as the determining factor, but it actually looks at the stats that your class and your specialization really wants, including differentiating between which secondary stats your class is going to be partial to. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the Pawn add-on. I'm going to show you the features that are available, and I'm also going to show you how to set up some custom things for it as well. Okay, so first off, Pawn doesn't affect anything that's actually in the game itself other than the tooltips for your items. So this doesn't really change anything. There's no comparison point between this is pre-Pawn, this is after Pawn. So we're just going to jump into the add-on itself. If you type /pawn in chat, that's going to pop up the Pawn menu. There's a little bit of information here trying to tell you how to get started, but I'm going to cover all this stuff in the video here. So basically what Pawn is going to do is Pawn will add some information into the tooltips for your pieces of gear. So for example, I currently don't have a helmet on at all. This is telling me, if you look at the very bottom of this tooltip, it says PvE Warrior Protection Noxic Upgrade, Arms Upgrade, Fury Upgrade. This is telling me that this piece of gear is an upgrade over what I currently have, which is nothing. So if I go ahead and equip that, then we're going to see that now, okay, we're all good. I've got a helmet on. If we were to say put on this helmet here, we can look and see. Now I have this 310 helmet on, and we have two different items here. So first off, we have this Bone Fetish Face Guard. At the bottom, it's telling me it's a 16% upgrade according to my PvE Prot Warrior stats. It's a 15% for arms and 15% for fury. If we look at this one next to it, it's telling us the same thing, 16%, 15%, 15%. So we know we could put either one of these helmets on and we'll be okay. So we're going to go ahead and equip that. I just had this one on because I like the appearance of it better and the Azurite traits a little bit better. So, what Pawn does that's really special though, however, is it lets you customize how those percentages are determined. So normally what you're going to do with a piece of gear is you're going to look at the item level and go, this one's 115 and the one that I'm wearing is 325. Obviously the 325 is better. But what happens if you have two pieces of gear that have the same item level? Or maybe you have a piece of gear that's 5 item levels lower than another one, but it probably is a better upgrade for you because it has better stats. That's where Pawn comes in. So when you get into Pawn, a couple of things you can do. There is a window for messing with gems. I generally don't use that too much, but it will tell you the type of gems that you want based on the scale that you're using and the sockets available. So this is telling me that for PvE Protection Warrior, I probably want to put the Quick Owl's Eye into any sockets that I have. If I switch over to Arms, you're going to see that it switches over to Deadly Amber Blaze. And for Fury, it's saying Quick Owl's Eye again. So that's mainly what this shows you in this window. The next window here is Compare. You can put two different pieces of gear into the comparison slot and it will show you the important attributes that you care about and what the differences are. So if we look at this helm, this one here is the comparison on the left and this helm is the comparison on the right. You can see that this helm has 357 strength. If we check, that's correct. The other one has 311, so it's telling you the stats that are really important to you. And it's also showing the item level and if there are special effects. In this case, it's a piece of Azurite gear, so there are. Then it's showing you with a big green arrow which one is better. But it also shows you the score that Pawn is giving this piece of gear based on its score for the different stat values in the item level, so you can compare that as well. So it may be that this helmet is 10.3k and this one would be 10.4k, and it's a very marginal difference, and maybe you pick one over the other because maybe you like the Azurite traits better. But with something like this where we have a 10.4k and an 8.9, that's a pretty significant difference, so we can see that this piece of gear is better. We can clear that out. We can throw two other pieces of gear in. We could put this Doom Crawler in and this breastplate here, and you can see that once again we have a significant difference in the gear score here as well. Okay, the next thing to talk about is weights. So you can go in and customize the weights for your different stats. So essentially what this means is you can tell Pawn that you prioritize strength over everything as a protection warrior, or maybe you prioritize intellect over everything as a holy priest. If we look at the stat weights here, you can see that there's no weight given to agility or intellect or armor on any of the gear. That means if the piece of gear that I'm looking at has any of these stats, it doesn't contribute to the score for that piece of gear at all. Stamina has a weight of 12.07, which means that out of everything here, the most important stat for me as a protection warrior, according to Pawn, is going to be stamina. Following that up, strength has a 9.07. So these are all relatives. The higher the number, the more points you get for each stat, each one digit of stat that you get for that particular item. And then we can go into enhancements. These are secondary stats. You can see that I'm valuing haste, then mastery, then versatility, then crit. So you can set these up manually yourself. I can go in and say intellect. One intellect is worth 2. Okay, so now my intellect has a stat weight of 2, and this may change how my gear is going to be scored and what I determine to be an upgrade. I'm going to remove that because I definitely don't want intellect as a protection warrior. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you is over here in scale. Scale is where you create those weights. So these weights, you can go in and manually select them for the different things, but you can also go into scale. This gives point values to stats, so Pawn can tell you which of two items is better for a certain spec or situation. Now, Pawn by default is going to have scales in for each of the different specs for your different classes. Now these are kind of generic. They don't always get updated very quickly. There's nothing wrong with using these as your default just to get started and kind of learn the system. But what I recommend you do is you get the scales from Noxic. So we're going to take a look at that real quick. Over here, this is the website I use. It's noxic.com, noxic.com/wow, W-O-W. Can't spell wow right now. So if you come in here and you go to PvE or PvP, depending on which one you're doing, but if I go to PvE class guides, I go down to warrior. Let's do arms first. We go into arms. I want to click on stat priority and summaries, and then scroll down here to where it says pawn string. If I copy all of this, I can go back over to my pawn add-on, and I can click on import, just paste the whole thing in, and then hit OK. You're going to see that pop up over here on the scales. It says PvE, Warrior, Arms, Noxic. You can rename this as much as you want, but what this is showing me now is the weights that I imported. So if we look at, for example, the default Warrior Arms weights, we can see that the strength is given a 1.62, stamina is given a 0.01, and then we've got low ones for all the different secondary stats. If we look at the weights given from Noxic, you can see strength is rated very high. Then we have a high crit, then haste, then versatility, then mastery. So the weights are expanded upon via the Noxic weight system. And then what I recommend that you do after that is go into the spec that you just replaced. So in this case, we've got our PvE Arms Warrior Noxic scale. We're going to click on the regular default arms scale, go back over to scale here, and we're going to click show this scale in tooltips. We're going to make sure that's unchecked, because right now if we hover over a piece of gear, you're going to see, I've got to take a piece of gear off real quick. You're going to see that now it's showing me in the tooltip my Warrior Arms Noxic Protection Noxic, Arms, and Fury. Now that I've changed the stats for my scale, I don't need to see that default Arms anymore. So if I uncheck Show this scale in tooltips, it's going to take that off. And then if I hover over this, you can see that that's gone. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. We're going to pop over to Noxic again. And this time we're going to go down to our PvE class guides, Warrior Fury. We're going to go to Stat Priority and Summaries, go down to our pawn string, copy the whole thing, parentheses included, and then we're going to hop back over here. We're going to hit Import, paste that in. Okay, that's in there. Then we're going to go to our default one and just unclick that. So now we have weights based on these particular scales that are given that I think generally are updated more frequently. You kind of have to keep up on that manual updating yourself, but generally speaking, these are going to be better than the default ones. Now, I don't have a bunch of examples of, different gear upgrades in my bag because I'm pretty much wearing my highest gear and I usually try to cycle out the old stuff, but I went ahead and switched my shoulders just so you could see here how this really does make a difference. So if we look at this, it's showing me that for Arms Warrior, these shoulders are a 15% upgrade. For Protection, they're a 17% upgrade, and for Fury, they're a 15% upgrade. So because there are different weights given to different stats, that allows me to see that, it may be a bigger percent upgrade for a particular specialization. Another cool thing about this is with some of the add-ons I have, I can go into my World Quest list and I can check out the different pieces of gear and it'll show me, like right here, the Zandalari Band, 23% upgrade for Arms and Fury, 30% upgrade for Protection. And if I scroll down, you can see in this case, like these either aren't an upgrade or they're the same level as my current piece of gear. So there we go again, 22% for Arms and Fury, 35% for Protection, etc., etc. The place you do have to be careful with using Pawn, though, is it doesn't always necessarily incorporate on-use effects or special abilities. So, for example, this trinket is a 320 trinket. If we look at my other trinkets, I do have a 300 eye level trinket that has a little bit of versatility. Chances are the strength is going to be better for me. But it's not really incorporating that. Also, I know because of the weights in Pawn that getting haste is a very good stat for me to have as a Protection Warrior. So in this case, if I'm looking at this Gilded Loa figurine here, that says your spells and abilities have a chance to increase your primary stat by 855, which is pretty good. But also the other one says your spells and abilities have a chance to grant you 656 haste for 8 seconds. So chances are I'd rather have a lot of strength by default and a chance to get haste as opposed to a lot of versatility and a chance to get my main stat. So you do have to pay attention. It's not a cure-all, tell you everything. For stuff that has on-equip abilities or on-use abilities that aren't just built into the bare stats, the core stats of the item, you may have to pay some special attention. And that mainly comes down to trinkets or like super special raid items and things like that. So that's it. That's Pawn. I think it's a fantastic add-on. It definitely helps me figure out what gear I should go get in world questing at a glance, and it helps me to figure out what drops are a good upgrade for my class, not purely based on the item level, but based on the actual stats that I'm going to be getting. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. I definitely think Pawn is one of the add-ons that like almost everybody should have installed. If you did get some help out of this add-on or you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment section below. I always try to come back and answer whatever questions I can as thoroughly as possible. Thanks for taking the time to watch one of my videos. If you liked it, hit the like button. Take some time, check out some of my other videos. If you think it's worth it, subscribe. I hope you're having a great time in World of Warcraft, and I'll see you on the next video.